egotistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, that's right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the SNL Network's Patron Feedback Show for week number 20 of season 47 of Saturday Night Live. This is the show where we answer all of your questions about the week in SNL and look forward to the next week. And we are at a really critical point in the season as we wrap up everything from the penultimate episode of the season with Selena Gomez and look forward to the season finale with host Natasha Lyonne. And this is going to be a very fun show for me because we've had a lot of guests on the Patron Feedback Show throughout the season, and it's always fun for me to get to meet new fans of Saturday Night Live and people who listen to the podcast and are recent patrons. So really wonderful to get to meet these two on the podcast for the first time. And joining us all the way from overseas, all the way from Scotland, is Lewis Cooper. Lewis, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very much looking forward to this. It is late, but you know, I think the adrenaline of excitement is going to give me the energy.
100%. Lewis, thank you for staying up so late with us. It's so awesome to get to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I think I was working till 10, so I probably wouldn't have been bed now anyway. So just happy to be here.
Well, I'm really excited to get your thoughts, Lewis, on the season and on this episode in particular. But let me also introduce one of our other patrons that is joining us today on the show, and that is David Frigo. David, how are you?
I'm good. It is not as late for me. It is only 8 here as I'm in New York.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, we're in the same time zone, David. So
yeah,
it's a little bit earlier for us, but I'm excited. S47 shirt, so I know you're a real fan of the show.
Yes, I got it when I saw the show live. I went and saw the show, which was really awesome.
Which show was that?
I've done 2 this season, but this shirt is from when I saw the John Mulaney episode.
Okay, and what was the other one you went to?
I went to Simu Liu.
Okay, cool. So Simu Liu and then John Mulaney. John Mulaney, one of the best ones of the season by far. So
yes, it was great.
That must have been a very fun experience for you. So want to get your thoughts on season 47 as a whole. We really have a very large sample size of the season, 20 episodes in. We're getting close to wrapping up the season. So Lewis, what have been your thoughts overall on season 47 of the show?
I think I've been really enjoying it. I think I saw a comment on YouTube once and I was like, what kind of clicked that the first half of the season felt a lot more experimental in there was a lot of ideas that didn't work, but there was a lot of ideas that really did that we hadn't seen before. And I think some of like the best parts of the season of the second half of the season are the parts that have carried over. Angela's always been cut for time, but the Sarah Sherman at the Weekend Update desk, the whole, trying new sketches. I think the game shows, they're very hit or miss. But I think because we've had a lot of them this season, and I think I kind of realized that they're kind of there to like warm up the hosts, as in, because I think I noticed that especially with Lizzo, how a host might be a bit nervous. They do a game show sketch, it's a hit or a miss, but it gets the host in a hosting mindset. So I think the season's overall been pretty good. Some highs, some lows, no extreme highs or extreme lows, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Lewis, I'm also curious. I mean, you are watching the show from Scotland, so I assume that you do the YouTube thing on the Sunday mornings?
On Sunday mornings, yeah.
Yeah, so how is that experience versus, let's say, watching the show live?
I think, because I make sure not to check social media to find out anything. I just I get up first thing, watch it. But the only weird thing is the ordering is quite different. Like Weekend Update will be split up. It'll always still be cold open monologue first sketch, but then it's kind of all over the place. So a lot of the times I don't have the same thing. It's kind of annoying with Weekend Update because you get like a 2-minute random joke bit, then like 3 sketches, a character, 4 sketches, more jokes. So I think, I'm glad I have to watch. That's the best way to watch it because I think there's a way to watch it Sunday night, but I think the way I do it is preferred.
Yeah, it's always fascinating for me to hear how people all over the world watch SNL. And of course, I mean, if you listen to the hot take shows, we'll give you the order of exactly.
That's usually really helpful.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so David, you've been to 2 shows this season. Would love to know how you feel about the season overall.
Yeah, so I'm a fairly new fan to the show. I watched it casually for a couple of years, and this year I'm more, this whole season, I've been trying to focus more on the show and watch every episode multiple times, watch it live, obviously go to the show. So I don't have much to compare it to.
Okay, so we've converted you from a casual to a diehard.
Yes, you have.
Okay, got it.
So I don't have a ton to compare it to, but I'm really enjoying the season. I'm loving the new cast members. I love all three of them. I'm really enjoying it overall.
Okay, do you have a favorite cast member from the season?
I haven't given that any thought. Like a new cast member
Okay.
or any cast
Could
member?
be, yeah. It could be, or maybe a favorite cast member of all time. And just we want to get to know you guys and hear about your SNL experience. So, do you have like a favorite all-time cast member from any of the episodes you've watched?
This is definitely cheating, but because he was not a cast member, but John Mulaney was definitely my favorite person to appear on
That's
SNL,
fair.
and that's why I was so excited to go to his show because he's my favorite to ever appear on SNL.
That's a great answer. So I think that's perfect. Lewis, what about you? Any favorite cast members from the season?
I'd say new cast member this season, Sarah Sherman, as she's just like had. She takes a lot of risks, but they always really work really well, which I think she is like her and Bowen Yang especially are the two people that I'm like, okay, these people are going to have a big impact on, the future of Saturday Night Live. And then my favorite cast member who's currently on the show is probably just Cecily Strong, which I think she's just a phenomenal comedian actress. So I'm just really glad whenever she's up in sketch, even though she's been there for 9 years. But hey, I'm not sure about. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it is 9 years. Yeah, it's been a long time. Okay, so that's really interesting. So love to getting to know you guys. Would love to hear your thoughts on this particular episode with host Selena Gomez and musical guest host Malone. We have had some incredible discussion this week, both on our hot take show and the roundtable, really breaking down these sketches. It really felt a little bit in, thinking back on it, somewhat of an experimental episode of SNL. I don't think everything worked necessarily, but some of the sketches I felt like reached for things that they haven't done, that I haven't seen before. There was no like repeat sketches. The concepts felt a little bit fresh. So for me, I thought this was an interesting episode of the show that was more carried by some of the writing as opposed to the performances in the show. So I would love to hear from both of you your thoughts overall on the episode. David, let me start with you. What were your thoughts on Selena Gomez?
Immediately after watching the show live, I thought it was a show of some high highs and some low lows. I thought we had some great sketches like Long Term Boyfriend. We had, what else was on there? Not sure. But we had some low lows. We had Baby Yoda. We had the Brat sketch. Yes. I see the general consensus is that people do not like Baby Yoda, and I am there for that.
Sure.
That was my
David.
overall thought when the show wrapped.
So what were your high highs? You said you did enjoy some stuff from the episode.
I enjoyed Long Term Boyfriend. I enjoyed Inventor documentary. I enjoyed Intuition. Okay. Those were the three, I think, standouts for me in the night.
And where
and the baby sketch.
Yes, for sure. Great. The baby monitors. Where would you rank this episode, throughout the season? Is this in your like, we 20 episodes in, let's say, we'll rank it into quarters. Is it like the, top 5? Is it the next 5? Is it the, the 10 to 15, or is it 15 to 20? You had to place it.
I'd say it's about in the middle.
Okay.
I didn't love it. I didn't hate it.
Okay. That's totally fair. Lewis, what about you? What were your thoughts overall on this episode?
I thought I did enjoy it because I think, like you said, there was a lot of new stuff. So I wasn't going, oh, this again. I think some ideas I was like watching and I was like, you could have done a bit more like Three Daughters. Because I think I get this thing a lot where like, there's multiple characters. Kate comes in and you're like, okay, she's going to be different. That was like, I remember I thought that with the therapist sketch, but then Punky came out with Jake Gyllenhaal. But this time, the whole joke was that Kate was normal, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're beating us." I think that was a really good idea, but they could have taken it a little bit further. And I think one thing I did really like, I think this might be why it's like higher up than most for me, is Melissa and Punky both got to lead a sketch, which we don't really see that much. So I think when I'm watching the show and I see you don't really see Aristotle sketches, but when I see a sketch led by a newer cast member that doesn't get much screen time, or because Melissa, even just a cast member that doesn't get much screen time, it's just really exciting because I'm like, you get to see their talents that you don't always see.
Yeah, that's true. That was what was very exciting about this episode. If I had to pull out certain things, was to see some of these newer cast members get some time on the show. Not every single one of them, but some of them
Yeah.
got some time. And I mean, that's been fun because we'll talk about this when we get to the questions. But we're nearing the time of the year where we start making predictions about who might be returning next year, and it's always fun to see who gets that May bump. There's a lot of eyeballs on the show during May, including people looking to see would people like Punky and Melissa get chances to return to the show. And I think that, them being given opportunities in the 20th episode of the season is a good sign for all of that stuff. But of course, we will talk about it. David, anything else overall about the season that you want to make sure we talk about?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Lewis, what about you?
I think screen time of people, but I think that will probably come in the questions.
Okay, so we can do that when we get to the questions. Let's start with our social media segment for this week. So, David, Lewis, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the social media and then make some commentary. Let us know what you think about some of the sketches that we're going to talk about. And we'll start over here by putting it up on screen if you're watching live on YouTube. We're going to start with Melissa Villasenor. And we talked about this a little bit on our Hot Take show this week, where we found out that Melissa had been, trying to get a peek at Pico on for a very long time. And she said on Twitter at Melissa V Comedy, "Man, I am so thankful I got to do my Das Sa girl on the show. Everyone rocked it. At Selena Gomez, you were so funny. So many brilliant people behind this. At Mikey Funtime, which is Mikey Day. At Streeter Seidel, and my boy Ben Silva, not in a cage this time." And then Selena Gomez replied, "No, like we did so goo." So I don't want to butcher any of the accents or anything like that. But so this for me was a very interesting sketch that it didn't resonate with me fully, but I liked what they were trying to do here. Lewis, how do you feel about this sketch of Pika Pico?
I didn't really like it. I think a lot of the jokes landed for me might not have landed for other people. Like, I kind of a big fan of like talk show where the talk show hosts are kind of idiots, but they still have this platform, and that was what it kind of was with. But they can still see the color purple, right? And cutting Mikey off and the interactions with Chris's character. I think this was probably one of Selena's more fitting performances, as in she has this dry humor, and that kind of worked here to counterbalance Melissa's frantic energy, but in a good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do like what you said, because that is a really good point. I mean, I actually think I like that too. I like, as a general sketch concept, if we're talking about like the bare bones of sketches, I do like talk show hosts that you start to think, why are these people given a talk show? Like, why are they allowed to have this?
They capitalized on that with Dionne Warwick, which, like, I think I watched the first time. I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. Like, this segments with Andrew just mixed with that kind of stuff. It's not a sketch concept I realized I liked until that I saw Dionne Warwick, probably, but yeah,
that's very true. David, what did you think about a peek at Pico?
I was also not a huge fan of this one. I was so glad to see Melissa getting some screen time. But I felt like once we hear them say, I'm not going to try the accents either, but once we hear them say that's good or that's sad, I feel like we know they're just going to keep saying that's good or that's sad. So I don't know. It felt very predictable to me and repetitive. So I wasn't huge on it.
That is fair. Okay. Up next, we do have some background behind the scenes stuff, of course. We have Will Steven, who worked on this Baby Yoda bit, did post a photo of me and then a background photo, basically, of Kyle Mooney as Baby Yoda. And then Che reposted it and said, "Me and Kyle beefing low key." And then Will Steven reposted that and said, "Pretty high key, to be honest." And then obviously Kyle posted and said, "Thank you, Louis Zakarian, for the makeup," and Will Steven and Stephen Castillo, who I guess returned to work on this or maybe contributed to earlier Baby Yodas. Look, we've been avoiding Baby Yoda talk all week. Do either of you have anything you want to talk about here, or should we keep going?
I will say this is probably the least worst Baby Yoda yet. I think that's really because Che and Kyle kind of just realized that everyone hates this. And I think because like Kyle started to break at one point.
Do you think they know? That's a good question.
I don't know if they know. That's a really Kyle thing to like do this bit that he was probably told to do. Everyone told him that it was awful, and then he just was like, "That's kind of funny. I'm going to keep doing it." I feel that's very in line with what Kyle would do. So I think, I don't want to see him again, but this was like the least worst. I thought the picture was like the cult with Jared Leto. I thought that was kind of funny, but yeah, it's Baby Yoda. There's not much you can say.
Yeah, so that's an interesting perspective on it, David. Would love to get your thoughts as well, because I don't know if they know that people dislike it as much as maybe they do, because it's not like one of those situations where I'm blanking on the name right now in chat, or one of you guys maybe help me out, but Taron Killam's movie reviewer that he did when he was on the show a few years back. Jebediah Atkinson. Yes, thank you. Yeah, like he used to come out and he would say something like borderline awful, and then he'd be like, oh, like getting the audience to like really like go at them and stuff. It's not like Kyle Mooney like eggs the audience on with this. It's just like he does it as if it's like a bit, and that's what's interesting for me. David, what do you think?
I watched the episode 3 times this week, and every time I could not even get myself to like focus on Baby Yoda, because I haven't liked it in the past. I was like, I'm not gonna like it this time, and I tried to get myself to focus on what was happening, but I was just like, this is awful.
I think I audibly groaned when they went with the upcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I was like, oh,
I did as well.
Right. And I see you, Blood Meridian, in the chat saying Jebediah is far better than Baby Yoda. I'm not saying that. I love Jebediah, I can say, when Taron Killam was on the show. But what I mean is just like, in that particular case, that was a character, I think, that really like egged the audience on, because he knew that he was going to like say something that maybe not everybody agree with. Like, this is just like, it's not like Kyle's saying things as Baby Yoda that are like so crazy that it's like, wow, we hate this character. Like, I just think people don't like it because I just think it's like bad satire.
Yeah.
So
maybe. I think
yeah.
Something else is, I think like the makeup art on him is really good, and it's kind of like disappointing seeing it wasted on such a bad bit. That could go to so many good things, but it's just, gangster. I don't know what he is. TikTok trapper, Baby Yoda, whatever.
That's very true. Okay, let's talk about a bit on Weekend Update that I've been raving about all week, which is obviously the Sarah Sherman or Sarah Squirm bit, where she talks about going on a tour of the studio and then walks towards Colin Jost's Chamber of Secrets and goes in there, and there's all the props and fun things. And here we have Sarah Squirm on Twitter says, here's the thing that I threw, so you get to see it. She posted it, so everybody gets to see. It's Sarah Sherman's head on a bodybuilder's body. We also have a Instagram story here of Danny Raitt, who works at the show, with Michael Che and Sarah basically putting together the post-it notes on the wall, or taking a selfie with the post-it notes. So this, unlike the Baby Yoda thing, was a very fun Weekend Update bit. David, what were your thoughts on this one?
I said in the chat during the hot take show, I believe it was, that I thought this was a very fitting conclusion to this whole series of Sarah roasting Colin. I thought it was a good way to up the ante, to bring it to new heights. And I kind of hope, is it bad to say I kind of hope this is the end of it, because
it's a trilogy.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want them to ruin it. It was great. I loved all 3. And I thought this was a great way to end it.
I would be stunned if this was the last we had heard about the Sarah and Colin relationship, unless Colin leaves the show, obviously, in which case that would be a natural conclusion to this. But yeah, I just think about how many times Leslie Jones came out and had her thing where she was flirting with Colin. Like, to me, this is something that the show knows people are eating up. So they tend to really like double, triple, quadruple down on every single time. But I do agree with you, David. I think that there is probably at a certain point, there will be diminishing returns for this. Lewis, what did you think of it?
I did really like it. I think a lot of people really like it. It's very good. I think Sarah's having a lot of fun with it. She's laughing at herself almost. So I think when she threw the thing by accident, that kind of made it funnier than if she just held it up. But yeah, I love the intern cage bit. I was like, because Sarah's always made a lot of like the pedophile jokes about Colin. Right. And she kind of went all out. And I think when like they said the Chamber of Secrets intern cage thing, I was like, oh man, Colin Jost fans on Twitter are not going to be happy about that. And I went on the SNL Struggles account, and it's just, can I go in there?
Oh yes. Oh god.
But I thought it was very strong. I think all the little details, like the affirmations, kind of just build to make the sketch even better.
For sure. I did like I think it was TJ mentioned this on the roundtable, but I like this.
Actually just getting word right now that you should be quiet.
she walks out of the studio. And of course, this line.
The Chamber of Secrets.
It's just the way that she said that. That's going to be a sound clip we're going to play for years. But yeah, that was pretty awesome. I mean, I can't say enough about Sarah and how great this was. A little bit more background here. So we have some background stuff of Dan Bula showing some behind the scenes thing. We also have Monkey Boys Productions, who definitely, they put together a lot of the props that are on the show. And we have this giant toast that was handed to Post Malone in the Baby Monitor sketch, which was very funny at the end of the night. Guys, what do you think of this Baby Monitor sketch? Lewis, I guess I'll start with you on this one.
Oh, I loved it. I love Weird. I love Sarah. I love Bowen. I think Selena worked here. I love the whole, it's like, oh, who wants to drink beer? Like, no, this is way more interesting. How every time they cut to the Baby Monitor, it wasn't something you're expecting. It was always something random. You know, Post Malone showed up. Bowen was throwing Sarah's character around. I think Post Malone was really well utilized in this episode. Like, obviously outside of being a musical guest, as he showed up in a musical piece, and then in the Baby Monitor one, I am curious if it was like his idea to show up. If he saw them in dress, and if he saw them in a rehearsal and was like, I want in on this, or if they asked him and he was like, yeah, he seemed to have fun with it. But
so usually the way this stuff goes is the musical guest will come in and will be like, if you need me for any sketches, like, let me know. Like, I'm good for whatever. And then they're like, okay. And then maybe like 2 or 3 people who are running sketches are like, oh yeah, we could throw Post in this one. So I think he was probably just like open to anything. And these, like this and the Intuition pre-tape, were the ones that just made sense in the end of.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. I think the idea with it had a good ending, which I think they've been getting better at, but a lot of sketches struggle to have a good ending where it like all comes together in a last laugh that's fitting. And I think this did that really well. Yeah, just maybe one of my favorite sketches of the night. Like I said, I don't watch them in order because I'm on the playlist. I think when I watch this, it's like, yeah, this is the 10-1 because I'm just so watchy it was.
For sure. David, what did you think of this one?
I thought it was a perfect 10-1. It was so weird and so great. I think it was probably the best one of the night. I thought I never knew where it was going, and I love that in a sketch. And the ending, of course, was great. It was just came out of nowhere, and it fit in with the weirdness of the whole sketch. So I really liked it.
100%. Could not agree more. It was very weird and a perfect 10-1. We've had a few of them this season that I think are pretty good, and this was definitely one of the best ones. Okay, this is pretty funny. The great Miley Cyrus, a SNL friend of the show, an all-time musical guest and host. Miley Cyrus on Twitter said, "Hell yeah, I'm Miley Cyrus." I can't do the Selena Gomez impression of Miley, but she puts T at Selena Gomez at NBC SNL, where basically I'll describe this thirst trap photo that Miley posted, which is, I guess, her in bed with a tank top that says "Hell yeah, I'm Miley Cyrus." Very, very fun photo that she posted, and obviously playing along with the bit. And she's such a good friend of the show at this point. To me, it's just hilarious. I wouldn't mind seeing her show up at any point. And recently was on Seth Meyers talking about her experience with being on the show and doing the New Year's special and all the stuff that she's doing in relation to the show. So this was kind of fun. Lewis, anything here?
I think, can we touch on the monologue here?
Of course, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
I think I really liked the monologue. I know not everyone did. I think it was a pretty good blend of here's the host talking about some of the things they've done and, cast members interrupting and having wacky shenanigans with Punky, James, and Kyle. So I think it was a good blend. The Barney bit at the end was nice, especially as someone who kind of grew up on Barney. I was like, oh my gosh, I never imagined this. I'd see something like this. But I think it was a solid monologue. I think this season's been really good for monologues. I think this was the perfect balance of host talks and cast members interrupt.
Agreed. What about you, David?
I enjoyed the content of the monologue. Everything she was saying, I thought was funny. I thought was great. I did not love her delivery. I thought she could have brought a lot more energy, especially since I grew up watching her on Wizards of Waverly Place, because that's the age I am.
Yeah, no, I was the same. That's the thing I thought of when I saw she was hosting.
Yeah,
I
I've
thought,
been. Sorry, go ahead, David.
I thought I've seen her bring a lot more energy in the past, so I thought she could have brought more energy to the monologue this week.
Yeah, I sort of was like trying to think about what it was that I felt like she was maybe missing a little bit. And yeah, like definitely some energy could have been helped. I was sort of thinking, I've watched Selena Gomez so many times and things, but maybe it's been a while. Was she always that nasally when she was talking? Like, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but like, I always felt like she had
Yeah, I did see that.
she had a distinct like she was very nasally in her tone.
I know there's a couple COVID scares like during the week, so I was like, wait, when like I first heard it. But I think that like that's probably just because I think the way I looked at it was, I haven't really Wizards of Waverly Place was like over 10 years ago, and this is now. I think Selena's kind of a different person, so I think I was able to cut the two from my mind, the character I grew up watching and the person hosting, because they were both. It's kind of two different people because it's just been so long that she's not going to be the same person she was then.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair. Okay, let's talk about this American Inventors sketch, which we didn't get to talk too much about during the week, but this was the sketch where we had Steve Martin in it with his relationship with A.D. Bryant's character, which was very fun. I guess A.D. Bryant's character, Dina Beans, that's the name that I was looking for. But Celeste Yim helped write this one, and they said, "I can't believe how this video looks. I am so grateful," on Instagram. And then the contributors turned the video directed by Hannah Levy, written by Celeste, 80, Please Don't Destroy, edited by Ryan Spears, posted on Instagram. An incredible amount of work went into this sketch by an amazing team of graphic designers, illustrators, and visual effects artists. So this was kind of fun. I mean, it looked absolutely beautiful. David, anything on the Inventor sketch?
I really liked this one, as I said towards the beginning. Every time I thought they were going to run out of a gag to use, they came out with a new one, and I was like, I don't know where they came up with all these different gags, but I kept thinking they were going to run out, and they kept bringing out some new ones, and I really liked it.
For sure, Lewis.
I think that I think Selena did really well in the pre-tapes, and I don't know if that's because she's not used to performing live or she like needs to take multiple takes. I thought she did really good here. It was kind of weird the way they used her. I thought Steve Martin was great. I watched Little Shop of Horror this week, and I was like, oh, wow, that's Steve Martin. I think that kind of just shows how, versatile Steve Martin is. But I think, yeah, that was really good. I think this was a really good use of visual gags, as in, that was the joke was there were visual gags. But I think, yeah, 80 was really good. And I think, like, I watched this, and I was like, that's an 80. 80 wrote that sketch, right? And yeah.
Yeah, I believe she did. She contributed to it, writing it,
yeah,
so maybe it was her concept. So, yeah, I mean, we do have a couple Steve Martin questions coming up in the question period of our podcast, so we will get to those coming right up. And of course, we do have some more behind the scenes photos. This one of the baby monitor sketch. So, if you are watching on YouTube, we have stuff that Sarah Squirm and Faye Dunaway, otherwise known as Bo and Yang, posted on Instagram, which is really fun. Them as the twins, and also them with the crazy eyes in the crib. Got to go baby mode with Faye Dunaway and Dan Bula. So that was really fun. We also have this from Punky Johnson. So let's talk about the Intuition pre-tape that we talked about a little bit earlier, where Post Malone also appeared. Punky Johnson on Instagram says, "Thank you for making my family classic come to life at NBC SNL. Me and my cousins Duke Relly and Megs Memorizing wrote this song. My brilliant friends Rosebud Baker and Will Steven and Ben Silva turned it into a great sketch. SNL made it come to life, and Adriana Robles directed the shit out of this. My goon. Elijah digging in on the beats. So grateful to have freaking Selena and Post Malone fine asses spitting fire on here. I'm honestly still tripping this happened. It's crazy. Chris Red, sorry, Punky goes on a long time this one. Chris Red, just think he's so fine. Haha. Thank you for sharing this with me, pimp, and rocking it. ... Enjoy fam. ... Happy Monday. Hashtag everyday we lit. Hashtag flex. Hashtag mental health awareness. Don't listen to the voices in your head. It's probably my toxic ass. Hand on face emoji, crying emoji. The editors don't get enough credit. ... That is probably the longest piece of social media I've read all season." Okay.
Good job. You should
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Punky. All right, Lewis, thoughts on Intuition?
I liked it a lot. I think the first time I watched it, I was kind of just too distracted by, oh wow, Punky's leading a sketch, rather than to focus on it. But on rewatch, I was like, oh wow, that's really good. I usually don't really like rap sketches, but I thought this one worked really well because it was kind of fitting with the whole rebellious theme. And I think I realized, like, when Post Malone showed, I'm like, if Pete was there, that would have been him probably.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but no, I think it worked really well. I think funny concept, executed well. So yeah, not too much to complain about.
Okay, David?
I really enjoyed this one. I like seeing Punky and anything. Obviously, I like seeing Post Malone because I'm a fan of Post Malone just as an artist, and I thought it was a nice kind of relatable piece of comedy. Like, I think everyone has those thoughts going through their head of like, what if this is happening? What if that's happening? So it's just a fun way to bring something relatable into comedy.
Yeah, it will be really interesting to explore if Punky does come on next year and Pete does end up leaving the show. If this is a new team that we do see together a lot, the Punky and Chris Red team in some of these rap videos and things like that they could do next year, that'll be something interesting to watch for season 48. Okay. Going back to the Sarah Sherman bit on Weekend Update, she did post. Sorry, it was actually Martin Herlihy who from Please Don't Destroy who did post. Thank you, Ben, for getting in the cage for us. That would be Ben Silva. So very fun that we had the photo of that and confirming who was in the cage for those who hadn't seen Ben Silva before. Another Harvard alum, I believe. And of course, to wrap this up, a very nice behind the scenes photo that we have. Always love seeing these behind the scenes things on Instagram. It's been one of the great highlights for me all season about exploring social media after the fact is the show just continues to post great behind the scenes photos of all the cast members. And in this case, we got Punky Johnson and Sarah Sherman together behind the scenes having a good time. Sarah with her tongue out to the camera. So it seems like good vibes all around. And I'm sure we're going to get incredible vibes this week with the finale coming up already. They posted photos today of the table read, and we got to see some behind the scenes of everybody just hugging Natasha Lyonne, getting very excited for this final week. It's like the last week at camp for all of them before they head off for the summer. So it'll be fun to explore and talk about that throughout the next week. Okay, Lewis, David, you ready to get into some patron feedback questions that we got this week?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's do it. Okay, let's start with our first question we have from the great Jeremy Boulard. Okay, do you think that Selena would have done a better job as a host if she was booked 5 to 10 years ago? So, Lewis, I know you spoke about this a little bit, and both of you said you both watched Selena and Wizards of Waverly Place. So I think that would be even like, I guess that would be like 10 years ago. But I guess if she wasn't in this current only murders in the building phase and we had her host, at a time, maybe let's say 2008 to 2013, something like that. How do you think she would have done then, Lewis?
I think saying objectively better or worse is like kind of weird. I think comedy, you can't be objective about it, but I think it would have been very different. It would have been much more, Disney Channel star, much more Miley Cyrus or whatever. So I think that it could have allowed for more Selena-based sketches, whereas like in a lot of these, she wasn't the focus. But I think if we went back then to when she was a lot more of the, the bubbly Disney energy, I think that would have allowed for her to be the focus and her to really shine and people to go, oh wow, Selena was really good in SNL, rather than that was a really good SNL episode that had Selena hosting.
For sure. David, what do you think?
I agree that it's weird to say like it would have been better, it would have been worse. But I definitely, like I said before, I remember in Wizards, she had so much energy. So I just wonder if she would have had more energy 10 years ago than she did today, especially after a lot of stuff that she's been through in those years.
For sure. I sort of go back, like one of the episodes that I was trying to think when I saw this question from Jeremy was like comparing it to what we may have seen in a previous era. And I know we talked about Miley. I guess that would be sort of like in the 10 years ago spot where Miley would have really started on the show. But I sort of think back, there was an episode with Zac Efron in 2009, which was, still during a very fun era of the show, season 34 of the show. He hosted right at the end, season 34, episode 20. So it fits like a similar spot to, in the season. And I thought his episode was kind of fun. It was with a different cast. There was Gino's pizza roll sketch that I always remember from that episode, and my mother. But I sort of feel like Selena could have done really well with that cast. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, I think Selena Gomez with the Andy Sambergs, the Bill Haders, the Fred Armistons, I feel like she would have had a lot of fun with that, that cast, Kristen Wiig, all those people. But with regards to her personally, in terms of where she is in her life, I'm happier to see her now in 2022 than I would have then, because I do feel like she's probably a better actress overall and was probably be more open to doing different things now compared to what she would have been then, potentially. Obviously, this is pure speculation, but I just think personally, I don't mind seeing her a little bit later in her life, but it would have been also fun to see her in that era for sure. Okay, let's talk about this next question. David, do you want to read this next question from Ike Moore?
Yeah. Ike says, when comedic actors host SNL, is the episode better if the show adapts to the host style of humor, or if the host adapts to the show style of humor? Some are saying Selena's humor was too dry and low-key for SNL.
What do you think, David? Do you think that the episode sort of ended up being more low-key because that was Selena's style of humor?
Probably. I definitely think the monologue sets the tone sometimes, and I was not pumped up to get into the show after the monologue.
Yeah. That's fair.
But in regards to the question, I gotta think about that.
Okay. Do you want why don't we start with Lewis and then we'll come back to you, David?
Yeah.
I think it made there was some kind of whiplash in between the actual people in the sketches, if that makes sense. Because I think Bratz is the one I keep thinking about, where Selena's energy wasn't matching Bone in 80s. And I think it reminds me it is very much like the Costco meeting sketch, where, I don't think Kim brought as much energy when that one was cut for time. So I think having Selena be low key, I think they probably could have done better to, work around it. Because I think A Peek at Pico did pretty well at that, as in, like, it felt like that sketch was written around Selena rather than going, okay, we've got this sketch with Bone and 80 and insert host, whatever host we have that week. And that's what that kind of felt like. But I think Inventor documentary, she wasn't really like that. And then she was kind of the background in others. And then I think, like I said before, the pre-tapes, I think she was really strong and fitting in. Yeah.
I think for me in general, I'd rather the host adapt to the show style of humor as opposed to the, okay, this person's coming in, so we have to make the episode about their particular style, unless you know that the style fits so perfectly with the show. Like if a Steve Martin episode is coming out and that's how, Steve is that style of the show and it works, I'm okay with it. John Mulaney, a great example. We know what the John Mulaney episode is going to look like. And now you may be listening to this and saying, well, John, how would SNL ever know if they don't go ahead and try to match the stylings of the host? Well, I would say, I guess it depends about how confident you are in the performer coming out to host. If you feel like Selena Gomez was not built to host SNL, then you should bring her into the general sense of the show, as opposed to saying, okay, what is a Selena Gomez of an episode of SNL, and try and build it from there, if that makes sense. David, did you have more commentary on this question?
Yeah, I think if the show tries to adapt to the host's humor, you'd probably get more hit or miss stuff. So like sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't work. But with the host adapting to the show style of comedy, you'd probably get a more consistent show, but just a more consistent show. So it depends on if you want to go for like some really good and some really bad, or some consistency. That's what I would think.
Yeah, and here's a really good example. Like last season in this spot, we had Keegan-Michael Key coming in to host the show. It was his first time on SNL, but he is obviously extremely experienced in sketch comedy. He came from the Mad TV world and a million other things, Key and Peele. And obviously in that particular case, I would have no problem if SNL says, okay, we're going to make this episode a Keegan-Michael Key style episode, or they had a lot of confidence in Dave Chappelle when he hosted, and Dave Chappelle, it's like, okay, obviously a lot of experience with what he's done in his career. So let's make this episode feel that way. But I do think it's like when you're bringing people who are new and fresh to the SNL world, I don't think SNL can afford the luxury of just saying, okay, we're going to build the theme of the episode around the host. So I think it's a very interesting question, Ike. I think it's really host dependent. It will be very interesting to see what they do with Natasha Lyonne this week, because she is obviously very close to the show. So will the show look like a Natasha Lyonne episode, or will Natasha Lyonne be brought into the show? That is something that we will look to determine, in the podcast throughout the next few days. Okay.
Yeah. I think what was I going to say? I think SNL, looking at it from a business perspective, almost, they have to go, we have Selena Gomez hosting. Selena Gomez fans who aren't usually fans of SNL might tune in. Do we want to make it SNL style so they can see if they like it and maybe stick around? I think that's something they have to look at with a lot of fans, a lot of hosts, because when you have, hosts that have almost cult followings like Jake Gyllenhaal, I think Jake Gyllenhaal blended really well, where it didn't feel like Jake Gyllenhaal style or SNL style specifically. They kind of blended together. And I think that's kind of the perfect way to do it, because it works in a way that Jake Gyllenhaal fans are satisfied, SNL fans are satisfied, and some Jake Gyllenhaal fans might go on to become SNL fans.
I agree. Yes, I think that is the perfect way to do it. And if SNL can find that blend, that's always works the best. Okay, Lewis, do you want to take this next question from Haley?
Yes. Haley says, what is the most that one cameo has recurred in one season besides Steve Martin?
So I think the answer has to be Alec Baldwin as Trump, right? Like, I think that, did you guys have any other ideas or no?
I thought maybe Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, because as update, I don't think as much as Alec Baldwin, because he kind of, he was basically a cast member at one point. But
right.
Yeah, I think if you take out Alec Baldwin and SNL alumni, it probably is someone who comes on to do politicians.
Right. Or like in the case of in the early 90s, after Jan Hooks left the show, she came back a few times and, for a few episodes. John Lovitz came back after he left the show a few times. So there's oftentimes like, we talk about like people who like never really leave. That happens a lot. But yeah, I mean, Steve Martin in this particular case, him coming back 3 times in the season, again, like, had the Paul Rudd episode happened the way it was supposed to happen, then I don't know if if he does come back for the John Mulaney episode, because they would have done the 5 Timers Club there, and who knows what they had done for Mulaney. Obviously, this particular case where he works directly with Selena, I think this is it just made perfect sense. I also, completely forgot and love this thing from Ken in the chat where he says John Goodman as Linda Tripp. Obviously, that's a good example as well. So, it's an interesting thing to think about for sure.
I'm going to hop to the bathroom real quick. That's all right?
Yeah, no problem. Yes, of course. Okay. David, it's you and I for the next question. Let's take this one from Ike Moore. And again, Ike asks, do you guys think that Steve Martin's hosting days are over? He'd love to see at least one more time. So David, I know you're relatively new to the ultimate, fandom of the show, but would you like to see Steve Martin come back and host?
Yeah, I'd love to see him come back, but I have no idea if he will or not, because as we established, I'm fairly new to the show.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, my guess, he hasn't hosted the show in a pretty long time. My guess is if all goes well and everyone's healthy and willing to do it and still acting and stuff like that, I would be pretty stunned if Steve Martin doesn't host the show at some point during season 50 of the show. It seems like that is the right spot for him. Maybe he'll come back, once or twice for cameos between now and then. But we're not that far away at this point. So it'll be 48 in 6 months. So really 2.5 years between now and then. Wouldn't be surprised if episode 1000 to start season 50 would be hosted by Steve Martin potentially. I think that would be a spot for him.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay, let's take this question from Seth Randall. Seth would like to know who were your favorite musical guests this season. So, David, any favorite musical guests of yours?
My favorite, even though I'm not a big fan of hers in particular, was probably Taylor Swift. I just loved I loved the story behind it. I just loved her performance. I loved how she broke the mold and did a full 10-minute performance instead of two shorter ones. I don't know. I just thought it was great overall.
Okay. Lewis, what about you? Any favorite musical guests from the season? This is from Seth Randall.
I usually don't tune into musical guests because I
Sure.
think I have like a fairly niche taste in music, and they don't hire people. They don't bring on people that like I'm usually big fans. But I do like. I think I'm more keen to them when they're doing double duty because I think I think that's a good way to bring in, bring in fans to their music because I think I had a higher opinion of Lizzo and Billie Eilish after watching their episodes and going, oh wow, they're good in this stuff. I'll watch their musical performances, sure. So.
Yeah, for sure. I would say my favorites were probably Young Thug and Gunna. No, I'm just kidding. But there's a few that I liked a lot. I do like country music. I like Casey Musgraves, Ed Sheeran. I enjoyed Taylor Swift. For all the stuff that went on, I definitely liked seeing Taylor Swift on the show. And then with regards to like some of the more recent ones, I thought Charlie XCX brought a lot of energy, and then Camila Cabello I thought was really great as well. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit more like come from the pop country side of things. So we don't usually talk about music because it's so subjective on the show. But in the chat I do see some votes. Brandy Carlisle is also one that a lot of people enjoyed. So there have been some fun musical guests this season, and Bleachers, of course. Yeah, that was a good replacement as well. Okay. Let's take this next question. Always a little bit fun when we tackle something like this. Let's take this question from Monette. And Monette would like to know, what is going on with Aristotle? What is your theory on his lack of screen time? Is there hope for him to last more than one season? Monette, I hear your cry for help. Let's help her a little bit. Let's answer this question. David, what do you think?
I would say he's probably just either not meshing with the show itself or with the writers. Something just has to be going on where he's just not, where his style of comedy isn't really meshing with either the show or the writers.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be my guess.
Because I think in the first half of the season he'd like do these random cameo roles, like the stool testing one. He was the action guy. He was the waiter in the Owen Wilson splitting the check. I think that was Cover Time. But, then he kind of landed with Angelo and Laughing Tosh, which are like two of my highlights from this season. I think they just are really funny, really new. And I think I saw a YouTube comment that was like, maybe Aristotle beat up a producer or something. But I don't know. I think something I look a lot at is the background characters, almost like in a dinner table sketch, how you'll have Chris Red, Ego, and Heidi usually are like at a dinner table where they're not the focus, and Aristotle never really gets that. I mean, neither does JJ or Sarah, and I think that's something that that limits their screen time, and it also prevents them from having good delivery on one-liners that could then look at the writers, see going, oh wow, this guy's actually got some good stuff. I can use that this way. Like, I think how well Chris Red's done, and he was in a lot of backgrounds and sketches where he was like a contestant and he had really good line delivery, and that led to him getting a lot more screen time and written into a lot more sketches.
Right. I mean, look, we've talked about this a lot, especially on the patron feedback shows this season. I've always tried to give him grace because I think that SNL is not an easy environment, and it's not for everybody. And I really think that he's a very talented performer, and I hope he gets another season on the show, especially with his background. I mean, it's not like we talk about SNL's diversity issues sometimes. I think that it would be nice to see him being given some more opportunities, but I think like all of that aside, just for purposes of this conversation, I think that I was for many weeks saying, hey, like, I don't really judge until after, 2 seasons. And then I feel like we have a good idea, because first seasons are always tough. And he's also coming in, by the way, in a year where his two fellow rookies are having like all-time rookie performances. Like, they're talking about like potential future Hall of Famers. And he comes in with them. He also comes in with Please Don't Destroy, who is, obviously going to be a big part of the show for years to come. So I think that is certainly a factor. But at this point, I would have to say that, David, I totally agree with your perspective on it. I don't think that somewhere, somewhere behind the scenes, something isn't clicking. I don't think he's either meshing with writers or people at the show that are able to put him into things. For whatever reason, he's not being thrown into sketches, even sketches that have a lot of people in them. He's not being put in them. I don't think he's found his, pair yet. JJ clearly has been working with like Dismukes and Colin Jost and a ton of people. JJ and Sarah like knew each other even before the show and stuff like that. Like, I just think there's like, they clicked so easily, and I just don't know that Aristotle's clicking with everybody. And I mean, I was talking to the panel after the roundtable on Monday. We were just looking at the stats on this, and like the stats are kind of jarring. He's been in 27 sketches this season, Aristotle Atari. Okay. So, and that includes, by the way, like even like him just, subtly appearing in the MacGruber stuff. Like that's a sketch that counts as an appearance. But anything he's been in on screen this season, 27 SNL segments. Okay. That's going to be a pretty close to the lowest ever for a full season cast member. Here's the people out of anybody who's been an official cast member on the show. Here are the people that he's above. He's been above Beth Cahill, Patrick Weathers, George Coe, Morwenna Banks, Dan Vitale, Emily Prager, and Laurie Metcalf, who were like barely even cast members. But those are the people he's above. He's one behind Matthew Lawrence, who is in 28 sketches. And then Luke Knoll is like the next jump up to 36 sketches from a few years ago. So he's like, assuming Aristotle's in one or two things in the finale, he'll probably top Matthew Lawrence. But like for modern day SNL cast members, this is like an all-time low, and I'm really stunned by it. So I hope that like somehow this all comes together. He gets another shot on the show, and he has like just somehow like finds his footing. But never seen anything really like this in my time watching the show in recent history. So I hope we see more.
I think something I kind of had I thought recently that so there was 8 new writers hired at the beginning of the season.
So there was 10 new writers, including Please Don't Destroy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, you bring in 10 new writers and you give these people access to this cast of like 21, I think. And, they go, oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Kate McKinnon. Oh my God. Kenan Thompson, Cecily Strong. And they want to use these people that they've like admired for years. So it kind of leaves people that don't have shticks or whatever. It kind of leaves them aside, which is, I think, what happened to Aristotle and Punky, that these writers who haven't actually seen that much from them, they aren't, as excited to write for them like they are with Cecily or even Mikey, even though I think he writes a lot of stuff for himself. But I think that's part of it. And it's kind of sad, but it's kind of inevitability with how they've mashed up things.
Yeah, I just think the big question is, and like, again, like, we do this podcast for you guys. So like, I want to get the answers one day. So I hope that we get an opportunity to speak to Aristotle or to speak to some people who are at the show that maybe can fill us in on what these answers are. But I don't know if it's, like you said, Lewis, if it's just the writers coming in and they're not interested in writing for him, or, there's something just happened where the personalities are not clicking, and maybe that's more on Aristotle. I don't know. So we will find out as we go. Okay, let's take this next question. This one is from our friend George Jones, and Ken says, season 46's last 3 shows went from an episode that was something of an embarrassment, these are your words, Ken, to a passable and at times good episode, to one of the best finales in years. This season, I'd say we've had one decent but not very memorable episode, one flawed but fascinating episode, and a finale which is still unknown. Do you prefer big swings of quality closing out a season, or something consistent but not as memorable? So, David, Ken wants to know, do you prefer something that's like a huge swing, or something is, more consistent, solid SNL to end the season?
I'd probably prefer just some nice, consistent SNL. We're in season 47, so there have been 46 finales. And I don't know, I don't feel the need to go out with a bang. I just want some nice, consistent SNL.
Okay. Lewis, what do you think?
I think think first of all, I think the Keegan-Michael Key calling it passable but good was a low blow. I think that was a really strong episode, but that comes down to personal opinion. I think I do really like it when we get an episode like Anya Taylor-Joy, one where, I watch it and I message friends. I'm like, you have to see the sketch. It's so good. And I think part of the hype of what makes it so good is the fact that the writers are kind of going, wow, this is our last chance to make an impact. A lot of people will think of this episode for the rest of summer when they think about SNL. So I do kind of like, if it means we get one or two kind of meh episodes, but we get a really strong last episode, I think that is good for the long-term run of the show. And obviously it comes down to your personal opinion. If you like, consistently good or experimental highs and lows.
Yeah, I prefer a big swing for the finale. I think let's do it. I mean, this is like your whole season coming to an end. You're not going to be able to do this again for a few months' time. Let's have some fun. Let's take some risks and see what happens. And I think that is what happened last year with the Anya Taylor-Joy episode. They took some big swings. They had a lot of fun, and I had zero expectations for her. And boy, was I surprised. I was watching that episode and I was having the time of my life. And I was like, wow, this is what this could be. And I just think if they were able to recapture that magic just a little bit for this week, I would be so utterly impressed. I'd be like, SNL is on this finale streak. So let's see what's going to happen. But that would be my general preference. Okay. Let's take this next question from Naomi, who I believe is in our chat right now. Naomi Weyes wants to know, most likely, but she really hopes not, we'll have cast departures. If we don't have proper farewells, that would be sad. But if we do, she thinks that maybe they would overshadow Natasha Lyonne a little bit because she is a first-time host. So in case someone does leave, in her opinion, booking someone who had previously hosted would have been a better option. What are our thoughts? So, Lewis, Naomi really wants to know if should SNL consider booking someone who is just, your consistent host in case, the episode is more about the departures, or is it better to book the first-time host?
I think it kind of depends, because I think there's a difference between, I think returning host is kind of a big term because you've got someone like John Mulaney, who when they announced John Mulaney hosts, everyone who's a fan of SNL is they go crazy because he's just such a strong host. He's got such a strong history with the show. So that makes it kind of an event in itself when he hosts. But you look at someone like Benedict Cumberbatch or Jay Gyllenhaal, when they come back to host their second time, it's not like, oh my gosh, they're back. It's like, oh, that's cool, they're hosting. And it removes the aspect of, yay, it's their first time. So I think that bringing in a host who has done it once or twice before and isn't this big hit. It's quite a niche group of once or twice before that isn't a crazy, super famous person. I think that probably is the sweet spot you want, where it's someone who, they know how the show works. They're able to give room to the writers and performers to elevate the season finale while, being able to help and not completely stealing the show. So I think there's not really, I think second or third time host for the season finale works, but obviously you can't, Lorne Michaels can't call someone on their list of second or third time hosts all the time.
Yeah, that is fair. David, what do you think?
I think that Lewis could not have said it any better. But if I had to choose between someone who's previously hosted and a first time host, I'd probably go with a first time host, because I think of someone who's previously hosted is probably more likely to be like a John Mulaney or a Steve Martin. I can't think of anyone else, but these big names that are going to take up the entire show. Whereas a first-time host is not going to really do that, I would think.
Right. I think the thing for me with finales, and I try and find the right way to verbalize this on the other shows, but for me as an SNL fan, even before I was doing the podcast, there is a level of enjoyment watching Saturday Night Live on a weekly basis. And then there's watching SNL for a Christmas show or a finale. That is unlike anything else. And maybe even a season premiere sometimes. But there is something very special about these shows when you watch them, which is almost like it's like the equivalent of like not being spoiled on like a really big movie and you like know something big is going to happen. Like when I turn on the TV, besides any information we get in advance of the show, like when you turn on the TV on 11:30 on Saturday night for the finale, you're supposed to feel like this is the SNL season finale. This is the party of all parties to end off the season. I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know what sketches they're going to do, what characters we haven't seen, who might pop into the building. And I think that when you have a host you're familiar with, it kind of grounds like, okay, this is the party hosted at so-and-so's house. And you know that the parties are always really fun. So you're going to go there and you're excited about it. And I think when you have a first-time host for the finale, sometimes you're like, okay, I know this party's supposed to be really fun, but this person's never hosted a party before. Like, I don't know if they can pull it off. And I feel like that's the analogy I sort of get with somebody like Anya Taylor-Joy or Natasha Lyonne, which is like, fingers crossed. I sort of hope that she can do it for the finale, but my expectations would certainly be much higher if this was a returning host that I felt I had faith in to guide us through what should be a very fun episode of SNL to, cap off the season. So that's sort of my perspective, Naomi. All right. So 2 more questions. Let's take this next question from Victor. Lewis, you want to read it out?
Victor says, do you think we'll have a big send-off sketch? And if so, from whom? And also to continue the great work, John, my Canadian friend.
I didn't mean to make you read that out. Sorry. I forgot that was part of the question. But yes, thank you, Victor. Okay, Lewis, do you think we will have a big send-off sketch? And if so, from whom?
I think that'd be really cool. I think the issue is, something I kind of thought for a while is that Lauren keeps thinking that a lot of people are going to leave. Like, I'm surprised Pete came back, but I think he keeps thinking, any second, 80, Cecily, Kyle, Beck left, 80, Cecily, Kyle, Kate, Pete, all these people who've been here for a while could leave this season. I should hire more people. And I think that's where like the big cast's coming from. Because we got, Bowen and Chloe. I think there was Shane Gill was hired, but I think he was fired. So I don't know if we can. So, he hired 3 new cast members 3 seasons in a row. And I think that is just because he does feel like it's inevitable that someone's going to leave. But it's felt like that the last 3 seasons. And the only really big departure we've had is Beck. So I don't know if anyone will leave. I feel like people kind of have to allow, newer cast members to get the spotlight. But I would like a send-off sketch. But I remember the Jason Sudeikis stories from the show. He talks about him. He had a send-off sketch, but I got cut for time. So that's kind of like, that kind of curses my mind, the idea of a send-off sketch. Because I think I'd rather we don't get one than we do get one, but it's cut for time and we never see it. So, yeah.
I think that was like a little bit of an exception, though, because they also had Bill Hader and Fred Armisen's goodbyes at the time. So, I guess like they kind of just put them all together in that case. David, what is your perspective on if we will get any, big goodbye sketches for any of the cast members?
I'm not totally sure. For some reason, my gut is saying either AD or Kate. I feel like Cecily got her big almost send off at the end of the last season finale with her Weekend Update piece, even though she ended up doing another season. But I feel like that was almost like a good her send off. I'm not feeling I don't even know if Pete's going to be in the building, so that's why I'm not saying Pete.
I have not heard word yet, but I would be very surprised if he wasn't.
We're gonna get a portrait film in saying, "Hey guys, I'm leaving the show."
Yeah, if I'm putting my money down right now, I'd say he's going to be there. But you never know.
And I don't know why I'm not feeling Kyle, but for some reason I'm just feeling either Kate or AD.
Yeah, I think the tough part is like I think only the cast members who are leaving know they're leaving. So unless they are just like, hey, like they're announcing it and they're telling everybody and it's like this one big secret, then maybe this will happen. But again, like I've said this all season long, like SNL does not like the cast members making these decisions now. They want them to like take the time, think about it. And then if you don't want to come back, you'll decide later. But in the case of Beck last season, Beck knew he was leaving. He told people he was leaving. And he, did this sketch and he sort of like, kept it close to the vest in case he changed his mind. But ultimately he didn't. And that was his choice. And so I sort of wonder, like, if we don't get a big goodbye sketch, what I'm going to look for this week is like, who is going to get that last sketch of the night? The sketch that we got with Beck last season was not your typical 10-1 sketch to end the season, but it turns out it was his last sketch. Could we possibly get something like that this week where there is a nice ending sketch, but it's not like packaged in a goodbye sketch, and we start the speculation there? I think that's probably where I'm looking at.
I think that's kind of an interesting idea of, leaving the door open but still being able to shut it, where they could leave, they could not. It's kind of up to them. But I think on the other hand, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't like the idea of my favorite people leaving, but I think we kind of have to. We kind of have to, shove them out the door. People have been thinking Kate and Pete have been planning on leaving for 3 seasons, but they never do. So I'd like. Yeah. It's kind of weird because if we have a lot of cast members leaving, I don't want the show to just be goodbye sketches. But I think that's ultimately why they wouldn't. If they have like 3+ people leaving, they're not going to do any goodbye sketches, because then ultimately someone's going to get overshadowed or thrown under the bus.
For sure. Also, if anybody's in the chat and was around the SNL community at the time when somebody, like, let's say when Bobby Moynihan and Vanessa Bayer left, I think that would be the most recent example of that. Did you guys know at the time that they were leaving the day of prior to the episode? I mean, that's something that if you're in the chat and you do know that, let me know, because if SNL is publicizing that certain people are leaving, that is something that they'll probably let us know here at the SNL Network. So we'll certainly keep apprised of that going into the episode. But okay, so Alice and Blood Meridian are saying those were announced in advance. Okay, so if SNL does decide to announce in advance that people are leaving, that is something that they will share with us at the SNL Network. So of course we will share that news with you guys if we are given permission to do so, obviously, and of course with the patrons, do our best to share that information with you guys first. Okay, so let's take this last question here from Tran, and Tran Kwong says, is there a chance SNL won't have a crowded cast for the 3rd year in a row? So. I think the simple answer, Tran, is like, we hope so, but I think this is the direction that SNL is moving forward with, and I would expect that at least for the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to get a cast around 20 people, and I can't see them changing this, until there's maybe some new administration at some point. You guys agree?
Yeah, I think I'm really interested to see what they do with the update, because I think when Colin and Michael inevitably leave, which could be the end of the season, are they going to promote cast members? Are they going to promote writers? Are they going to bring in new people to do update? That's kind of what, more than focusing on what cast members could come in this season, I'm generally thinking, what are they going to do with the update? Because I think, Michael and Colin have done a good job for a while. Seth did really good before that. We kind of need to bring more women to the update desk, and I don't really know how they're going to handle it, because I don't know if they're going to promote writers. There's been discussion about Please Don't Destroy. I kind of like them only appearing in their Please Don't Destroy sketches, because I think they have just such great chemistry between them that I think anything aside from a cameo is kind of deterring their potential. But yeah.
Yeah, we will see. I don't think, I think the complaints about cast size at this point, unfortunately, are like cold takes. I think this is just what we can expect for now, and we'll see what happens in a few years down the road. Okay. Lewis, David, you guys did such an amazing job on the Patreon Feedback Show this week. Thanks to everybody who sent in their questions this week for the Patreon Feedback Show. So as for what is coming up here on the SNL Network, of course, tomorrow night, Nicole Rovine and Rebecca North will be back for Hollywood Dish. It's the season finale of Hollywood Dish, and they will have special guest Amanda Mitchell on the show with them. They'll be talking about all things pop culture happening this week, heading into our season finale. So make sure to join them for that tomorrow night. We will be back with our Hot Take Show on Saturday night, right after the show, to celebrate the season finale. Join us. It's a lot of fun. David's been in the chat, of course, many times for our Hot Take shows. Always great to see your comments in there, and anybody else who joins us on Saturday. We will have a finale roundtable next Monday. And then next Wednesday night, we will be back for our final patron feedback show. And that will be a very fun patron feedback show because we're opening the doors to all of our patrons to come and join us on the show. So we're going to have people calling in throughout an entire block. I believe Andrew Haskell will be on that show with me, co-hosting the patron feedback show, welcoming in all the patrons. So you guys will get to talk to Haskell as well. And we'll be answering any questions anyone has about the season finale and season 47 as a whole as we look ahead to season 48. That will be a lot of fun. And of course, we'll have a postseason roundtable. We'll have our final by the numbers show, and then lots of fun summer coverage, including involving our patrons in a lot of things we're doing over the summer. So that will be a very fun time over the next few weeks as we continue to cover Saturday Night Live. Lewis, thank you for staying up so late with us all the way in Scotland.
I loved it. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Please tell the listeners where they can find you on social media.
I guess you can go to my Twitter at Funktra. I warn you, there is, I get criticized for my tweets, but I have fun in there. Yeah, nice there.
All right. Well, great to get to talk to you, Lewis. Always fun to hear your opinions, and I look forward to chatting with you more. Here. Yes, of course. I can't wait to chat with you more in the future. David, where can the listeners reach out to you? Great to talk to you tonight.
Oh, it was great. It was great to be here. I don't post SNL content like anywhere, but if for some reason you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at David Frigo.
Okay, that's perfect. And of course, looking forward to seeing you pop up in our chats for all the shows that we do. You can find us at the SNL Network, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Find me at John Schneider 24. Okay, for Lewis, David, and the entire chat here on a Wednesday for our patron feedback show, my name is John Schneider from the SNL Network. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you soon.